Do people feel free to give you input? Or does it just not happen that often? If so, there's a reason. The warnings of Deuteronomy 17, which are written for kings, are highly appropriate, so I'd like to read that passage before we wrap it up. It's speaking of the king of Israel, and it says, "When he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on a scroll a copy of this law, taken from that of the priests who are Levites. It is to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to revere the Lord his God, and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his brothers, and turn from the law to the right or to the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom in Israel." And this is a passage in Deuteronomy written for kings, and it says that to prevent them from becoming arrogant, from thinking they're better than their brothers and taking liberties with the law, what they need to do is have a copy of the law and read it every day. We need to keep our hearts tender, all of us, regardless of our spiritual age. And we need to do this on a daily basis. For Uzziah, there was a lifelong consequence. He was separated from the presence of God. And that's not to say he had no relationship with God, but he had to stay out of the temple precincts. He had to stay out of the holy places. He was not a priest, and God made it abundantly clear that he was not welcome to cross that line. As for me, I want to have a tender heart. And I know, as an older Christian, that the warnings of Uzziah's life apply. I want to have a Christ-like attitude. And when I see myself getting a bit haughty, being short-tempered or arrogant, I think of Uzziah, and I think of how much courage it took for the others to take a stand and offer him critique. And I know when someone gives me critique, normally he or she has thought it through carefully. I need to listen. I need to hear what God is saying to me and not assume, just because I know my Bible, that everything I do is right. The challenge of Uzziah's life is humbling for all of us. His story stands as a warning to us all, especially those in such a leadership position that others are unlikely to give them honest feedback. Do we think that we deserve special consideration or treatment just because we're older Christians, or we've given so much over the years, or for any other reason? This is clearly wrong. The ground is level at the foot of the cross. Well, what do we learn about God from our study of Uzziah? This is the most important part of each and every podcast. First, God and God alone is sovereign, and that means no one is above the rules. Second, leaders form or mentor other leaders. Sometimes when their influence is withdrawn, the depth of conviction in the younger leader is revealed. This we saw as Uzziah accepted the words of Zechariah, but later rejected the words of Azariah. And the third thing we see is that God will work to challenge leaders who need to be reined in, and God will do this through those who are courageous enough to speak out. May we all speak the truth in a spirit of love